come on in and spend some time with the film hobbyist. My name is Lydia, and I love movies. We're sitting here in my attic room. It shouldn't surprise you to learn that I'm not much of a decorator. This season is an exception, but I don't exert much effort up here in less trodden spaces. All I have is a small Christmas tree on my desk, hung with a selection of crocheted ornaments, faces about 1.5 inches in diameter. Santa, an elf, a girl with earmuffs, a boy in a toboggan, and a sugar plum fairy. If you'll recall our conversation back in June, I have a small business crocheting dolls. It's good work that I can do on the go, and it brings me much joy. One of my favorite pleasures is the delight on kids' faces when they realize what I'm doing, sitting in the grass by the playground while my children play. I often make tiny dolls from embroidery thread that fit in my palm, and I use a sewing kit to store my supplies. Sometimes, when a child comes to see what I'm doing, I'll open the box and show them the dolls. It's as if a golden light radiates from inside, the way their eyes sparkle and their smiles widen. Today is Christmas Day, which means it's the perfect time to talk about a Christmas movie. And I'd like to talk to you about the 2019 film Klaus, directed by Sergio Pablos. Part of my film hobby is that I like to watch movie trailers online, especially for films I've never heard of. It's a great way to keep an eye out for smaller, more obscure movies. But sometimes trailers aren't very good, and it can be easy to assume that the movie isn't very good either, even when that's incorrect. This was the case with Klaus. It was a mishmash of unfunny jokes strung together with cherry-picked dialogue set to a bad pop song. It looked like a cheap, lower-tier DreamWorks movie. And I mean cheap. The quick, choppy trailer edit made the animation look like it was done in Flash. But one night, while I was out having an evening to myself, my husband watched the movie with our daughter. He hadn't seen the trailer, and the description looked decent enough. When I came home, he told me all about it and had me watch it the following night, despite my skepticism. And I'm very glad he did. That trailer did a terrible disservice. First, the animation is much better in the smooth, sustained shots of the actual film. It wasn't done in Flash. In fact, the entire film was animated by hand. And while it was processed in a computer, that was to use a breakthrough technology to create amazing, complex lighting. This film is set almost entirely in winter landscapes, so what it lacks in environmental color, it makes up for in lighting. There are the soft layers you find with natural light in a dim room, and the golden glow of the sunlight shining through barren trees, long shadows cast over the snow. Secondly, what played as a dumb, contrived plot with a bad script in a trailer edit actually revealed itself to be a far more interesting story with depth and refreshing sincerity. While the trailer picked tropey-sounding dialogue reserved for cringy, faux cool animated characters, the actual movie exists to challenge that cringiness and that posturing, to give way to genuine feelings and real maturity. This movie does use a few overdone plot points in children's animation, but it uses them as a springboard to more interesting ideas. The one flaw with this film is that it misunderstands its own moral, trying to spout one pithy thematic statement while actually portraying another. Klaus is a reimagining of the Santa Claus mythos, using an origin story for writing letters to Santa as the foundation for the entire legend. It's set in a Scandinavian country, reportedly Norway, but the maps don't line up, where the postal service is taken very seriously. Postmen go to a special academy where they are rigorously trained by drill sergeants. Here, we meet Jesper Johansson, the spoiled rich son of the postmaster general, who failed the academy on purpose so he can return to his silk sheets. Instead of giving him what he wants, Jesper's father sends him to build a working post office in the remote northern island of Smeerensburg. If Jesper can get 6,000 letters delivered in the following year, he will be allowed to return home. If not, he will be cut off without a penny. With much whining and complaining, Jesper sets off to complete his task. But Smeerensburg is home to a centuries-old blood feud. Why would the residents want to send letters to their neighbors? They hate their neighbors. Jesper, used to scheming and conniving to get out of work, sets about trying to convince the citizens to send mail. At one imposing fortress of a house, a boy's drawing blows down to Jesper. Jesper tries to explain postage to him, but is chased away by the boy's father. In one last desperate attempt, Jesper makes his way to a house on a remote corner of the island. There, he finds a warehouse full of toys made by an imposing, elderly, axe-wielding woodsman. Jesper flees, but the boy's drawing falls from his satchel. The woodsman, moved by the picture of a sad child, intimidates Jesper into sneaking into the boy's house at night, through the chimney, incidentally, to deliver a toy. The following day, kids show up at the post office, filled with the idea that if they send a letter to the old woodsman Klaus, he will send them a toy. Jesper sees this as his way out and convinces the kids to write sad, pleading letters, and convinces Klaus to send his toys. It works, although Klaus makes Jesper be the one to sneak into each house, receiving the brunt of suffering and booby traps. While delivering a toy to one house, Jesper realizes the recipient is a bully and leaves coal for him instead. When the boy comes to the post office to tell the rest of the kids that Klaus never gave him a present, Jesper invents the idea of the naughty list, that Klaus would deny them presents if they weren't good. Hearing this, the kids go about trying to come up with good deeds, helping their feuding grown-up neighbors and parents instead of participating in destruction. At first, the grown-ups don't know what to do, trying to fight by outcompeting their neighbors in goodness. But eventually, that leads to real goodness, and the feud begins to melt. Jesper still needs more letters, so he convinces Klaus to make toys for Christmas. In the process, though, he begins to change and starts to enjoy the work that he's doing, and even Smeerensburg itself. The heads of the two warring families find out about his scheme and connive to send letters themselves, some even to his father, to get Jesper to leave. After a bit of a contrived crisis, their plan fails. Jesper chooses to stay, and Klaus becomes Santa. The moral of this story, introduced by Klaus, repeated by Jesper at the climax, is a true, selfless act always sparks another. This is absolute nonsense. There are true, selfless acts in this film, but they all happen later in the story, after the midpoint. And the film knows this. At the climax, a villain even rejects this statement, pointing out that both Jesper and the kids were entirely selfish. I think the filmmakers felt they needed a clear stated theme. I also think they got it terribly wrong. Perhaps they might argue that while Jesper and the kids were acting selfishly, Klaus wasn't. But the thesis statement implies that selflessness is the driver of the action, and that's not at all what's happening here. Klaus is a very reluctant figure. He's a loner. He's cut himself off from community. He's not welcoming to Jesper. He scares him away. He's only inspired to give the toy because a magic wind, implied to be the spirit of his dead wife, pulls the boy's picture from Jesper's bag where Klaus can find it, and later blows around Jesper as he tries to pitch Klaus on the idea of replying to the kids' letters with toys. It isn't Klaus's idea to help him. And he even forces Jesper to do the painful hard work, barely even speaking to him until nearly halfway through the film. It isn't a true selfless act. That doesn't mean this film doesn't have something coherent to say about good deeds and selfless acts. I actually think it does, something consistent that we see borne out in the real world. If I were to try and summarize it into a clear thematic statement, I'd probably put it, the practice of doing good sparks true selfless acts. Klaus doesn't want to leave his woodland hut. He and his wife Lydia, excellent name choice by the way, built it to get away from the feud. And she's the one who made the pithy statement, who believed in the impact of a true selfless act. Klaus decides to give the toy out of obligation to his wife. She would have wanted him to. And while he's warmed by the golden glow of wonder on the boy's face, it's her push, her inspiration that gets him to practice good by giving away the toys. And yes, the more he does it, the easier it is. Once he commits to answering the letters, he has also committed to practicing true selfless acts. And this is what happens in the town as well. Yes, the kids start doing good works and practicing pro-social behavior to be able to get toys, but then the work changes them, and they find genuine joy in the actions themselves. One group of kids doesn't know how to read or write, and thus can't send Klaus letters. They pester a jaded school teacher to teach them. But when one girl learns to write her own name, she's fascinated and wants to learn more. Yes, she has extrinsic motivations initially, but she finds the writing itself to be intrinsically valuable. The town changes, person by person, each in their own time. One man changes almost instantly. His son cleans his clarinet, and the joy of playing a glistening instrument moves him from the usual noise competition with his neighbors to making beautiful music. Some townspeople take longer. A group of kids choose to pick their neighbor's berries for her instead of stealing them, and she, assuming this is some kind of new contest, makes jam with it and gives it to them out of spite. But then their mom bakes it into a cake to one-up her, and eventually this routine becomes an actual genuine way their neighbor joins their family. They practiced doing good deeds, and it led to true, selfless, pro-community acts. Of all the members of Smeerensburg, the one with the longest journey is Jesper himself. His motivations are purely selfish. He's essentially running a scam. The film features his initial letter-writing campaign as illicit, his handing out sheets of paper and pencils in alleyways or in the lining of his coat pocket, like the old joke of fake watches in a man's coat. He ropes Klaus in by exaggerating the plight of the kids. He even sends the kids to school to learn how to write, partially as a way to get back at the school teacher with whom he has an early confrontation. What makes him change? Well, in the process of delivering these presents, he's in a close working relationship with Klaus himself. He's scared at first, then filled with grumbling and complaints. But the more time they spend delivering presents together, the more they build a friendly rapport. They begin to face danger together even, as the clan heads try to ambush them. But that only leads to more camaraderie and shared jokes. Jesper doesn't realize these things are changing him. He just thinks it's a fun perk to the scam. But then he gives Klaus his Christmas pitch, trying to sell him on building all the toys and setting up a whole workshop, and Klaus begins to push back until Jesper literally uncovers a sad truth about Klaus and Lydia, all the children they wanted and couldn't have. Klaus, angry at this invasion of his privacy and out of his own deep grief, lashes out at Jesper. And for the first time, Jesper realizes that this whole scam actually means something to him. It was good doing the work with Klaus. Losing this relationship is painful. And with that realization, he also understands that he actually enjoyed the work itself. He chooses to try and fulfill a letter on his own. A girl, a member of the Sami people, indigenous to Norway, Sweden, and Finland, has been trying to write a letter to Klaus this whole movie. But she only speaks Sami. In a moving sequence that always makes me cry, Jesper takes the time to work with the local school teacher to help this girl write a letter, to help communicate across the language barrier. And then, with his own 2 hands, he tries to make what she has asked for. He fails miserably, until Klaus comes to join him, moved by Jesper's true selfless act. The more Jesper joins Klaus in the toy making and the operation of preparing Christmas, the more joy he finds in the actual work itself. There's community to be had, and genuine relationships in all the planning and the preparations. And he starts to wonder if this small life, doing good work and building a community, might be better than silk sheets and fine brandy. Though his transformation takes the longest, it's that of the clan leaders that is the starkest. They agree to a truce merely to take down Klaus and Jesper and their whole pro-community, pro-social deal. They plot and scheme and connive, discovering Jesper's secrets. They work together, making an assembly line of letters, thousands and thousands of them. But in that working together, they accidentally build camaraderie. Like Jesper, those close working relationships are transformative. Used to working together, one clan leader's daughter saves the life of the other clan leader's son. And suddenly, this community bond can't be denied. It's a sudden romantic connection, and there's no persuading them out of this. Jesper sees the life-saving effort and the sudden romantic interest and declares a true selfless act always sparks another. But the selfless act only happened because of the habit of working together, because of that practice of doing good works. Now, we're not an elf-on-the-shelf kind of family. I don't tell my kids that they have to be good because the elf, or Santa himself, is watching them, and they need to be good if they want to get presents. But we are talking a lot these days about the importance of practicing. We do homework to practice skills, so they come more easily to us. We practiced our instruments, so in music class, we've taken the time to improve and are ready for the next step. We practice carrying on conversations with the toddler, even though she can't actually talk with us yet, because one day soon she will. And we practice treating other people with respect, as if they are someone who matters, because when we act impulsively, which happens to everyone, we want that respect, that sense of dignity, to be the first thing that comes out. I want my kids to act selflessly, to care for others without expecting anything in return. And I am so pleased when they do, writing unprompted birthday cards with encouraging messages, taking the time to sit next to a younger classmate, helping them with their reading, a sudden tender hug when someone is sad. But these things don't come out of nowhere. These things are the fruit of practice. It's my husband and I standing there, reminding them until the kids say thank you. It's repeated efforts of trying to get my two oldest to get along, walking them through each painful step of a negotiation and a compromise. But I walk them down these roads with the knowledge that the longer they walk it, the easier it is to walk. And when it's easy, true, selfless acts will happen. And I suppose that once all that work is done, it isn't unusual for a true, selfless act to spark another. Merry Christmas.